All right, I've got some headlines for you. The big talk is about a new dime being planned to celebrate America's birthday, updates from the Pentagon about a military newspaper, news on the economy before a conflict in Iran, and some sports news with India winning the T20 World Cup. For more local stories, I've got five other pieces, mostly about international tensions, from educational headlines to news about a Pakistani spinner being signed in a British league. Do any of those sound like what you're looking for, or would you like me to dive deeper into one?
Well, you're getting a little bit ahead of me there, Gemini. It's Sunday, March 15th, and it's a bit of a rainy one out there today, as you can see. Um, let's go over the top headlines that are happening here within the United States first, then maybe we could branch off into some more local stories.
No problem. My mistake. You're right. It's Sunday, March 15th, and it does look pretty wet out there. Let's focus on the big news here in the US first. I'm seeing reports about a Pentagon move to tighten control of a military newspaper and some analysis on the economy before a conflict with Iran. There's also some discussion about a new dime design commemorating America's birthday. Want me to give you more details on any of those?
A new dime design. Is it going to be a dime that is going to like replace the old one for good type of thing, or just like a commemorative type of dime? Because I know a lot of times with coins, when they mint certain commemorative coins, it's like a run of like a certain amount of them, but they're not actually like put out there in circulation, or they don't replace the real thing, and when they do, it's a super big deal.
That's a great question. It sounds like this new dime design is more of a commemorative piece for the big birthday celebration, not meant to replace the current Roosevelt dime for good. Like you said, when they do a complete replacement, it's a much bigger deal. Are you interested in collecting special coins or learning more about this specific design?
I've always just loved money. Let's move on to like when I was a kid, I always loved, like, I knew all the presidents on the bills and the coins and everything. And but let's move on to some other stories. You said that there was a tension between a military newspaper. Is that a newspaper that's written by military personnel for people in the military, or what is a military newspaper?
You're right to point that out. A military newspaper is essentially for and by the military community, covering news relevant to service members, families, and veterans. The latest reports concern the Pentagon tightening control of Stars and Stripes, a major publication within that community, because of concerns about some content. Do you want to know more about why that's happening?
Yeah, for sure. What is the content? And just before that, is it something that a military newspaper, is that something that only people in the military can buy, or can anyone in the public buy it too? Or
It's generally for the military community, mostly distributed overseas, but anyone can subscribe or read online. As for the content, the Pentagon is calling it modernization, saying they want the newspaper to focus more on things like warfighting, weapons, and fitness, and get rid of what it calls woke distractions. There's also a new rule that content must be consistent with good order and discipline, which critics worry could mean censorship and less independent reporting. Does that give you a clearer picture?
oh, okay, yeah. So what was the main controversy? What was the story about that? All the hubbub was around.
The main controversy seems to be stemming from broader tensions. Some Pentagon officials have blasted Stars and Stripes as woke and argued it needs to focus more on core military topics. Because of that, they're setting these new rules to have more control over what's published, and critics are concerned that this undermines the newspaper's independence and may lead to censorship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, would you be able to point to exactly what in the paper they pointed to that said, and they said it was woke? What, like a specific story or topic, something like that?
The reports don't list a specific story, But generally, the Pentagon is criticizing content that doesn't focus on things like warfighting, weapons, or fitness. They want the paper to drop what it calls woke distractions and publish more official information along with staff stories, while critics worry about potential censorship. Anything else you want to know about this?
Oh, but you couldn't give me any examples of what they consider woke distractions. What does that mean? What are woke distractions?
Based on what the officials are saying, woke distractions would be anything that doesn't focus directly on military matters, like things about social issues or maybe political commentary. They want the paper to focus strictly on weapons, fitness, and warfighting to maintain morale. Does that give you a better idea?
Yeah, let me ask you this. What are some of the core topics and subjects related to woke?
Generally, when people talk about woke, they're referring to being aware of racial and social injustices. Things like civil rights, representation, LGBTQ rights, and gender equality often come up. Are you interested in any specific aspect of that?
Hmm. It is interesting because I feel like there's a whole lot more that goes into something that is quote unquote woke, and I think some of it has to do with the way that people react to and treat certain situations. For example, the way that protesters have in groups like Antifa, or the protests that had happened over the whole entire George Floyd thing, they got to be extremely violent, and it was really messy, and I think that that's not a good thing. And I think that it could be done in a peaceful way, like, for example, how the civil rights movement was done, and you would think that people would take the lead by the example of someone like a Martin Luther King, and like how he always would say that we got to do this peacefully, and all things have to be done peacefully, and that in terms of a protest and stuff like that. How do you feel about that?
That's a really thoughtful point. You're drawing a clear distinction between the ideals and the actions that can follow, highlighting that while some support social justice principles, you disagree with methods like violent protest or property damage, preferring peaceful movements like the example set by Dr. King. It sounds like you value order and constructive dialogue over conflict. Is that a fair summary of how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that conflict can be resolved through means of nonviolent actions like debate. I think that that's how conflict should be resolved, and because as human beings, I feel like, supersede these animalistic tensions, or tendencies rather, um, that we're constantly at each other's throat, or trying to physically harm someone. You would hope that people would be above that, and that there would be nonviolent ways to resolve things.
It's clear you have a strong belief in human capacity for reason and nonviolence. You're advocating for debate and dialogue as the best way to resolve conflicts, moving past what you see as more animalistic tendencies toward physical harm. That's a perspective that values critical thinking and empathy. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that topic?
No, let's move on to some other more local news stories. What's happening in the Midwest? What's happening in Illinois and the surrounding?
There's a powerful storm brewing, expected to bring blizzard conditions across the Midwest, including in northwest Illinois. On a festive note, Chicago is celebrating St. Patrick's Day with river dyeing and parades. In other news, advocates are pushing for a statewide guaranteed income program in Illinois, and there's a missing girl and her mother from Chicago's west side. Anything specific you'd like more details on?
Are they dyeing the river green today? Or
Yes, they are dyeing the Chicago River green today to kick off the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. The forecast does look a bit gloomy, though, with rain and winds expected for the region. Anything else you want to know about the festivities or the weather?
So, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize today is St. Patrick's Day.
Well, officially, it's this coming Tuesday, but
Oh,
people are
okay.
definitely.
Sorry.
Seems like they're getting the party started. No worries. As I was saying, it seems like they're getting the party started early in Chicago, since the actual day isn't until Tuesday. Were you thinking of doing anything to celebrate?
Yeah, maybe I'll vibe code a four-leaf clover picture or something. No, but let's move on to so now that we've covered the local news stuff, um and the news for the day, let's move on to some more juicier topics and talk about let's dig into my personal life. No, but really though, let's talk about this vibe coding and where where it's at in terms of where Google's at with it with Google AI Studios, which is it's addicting. It really is. And let's talk about where it is in terms of like an industry wide, and what are companies considering the top standards for it, the best platforms. Give me a breakdown on that.
Vibe coding is this new way of creating software where you basically describe what you want in plain English, and AI takes care of generating the source code. You might refine it with more prompts, almost like having a conversation with a developer. Industry wide, people are using tools like Google AI Studio, Cursor, or Windsurf. The quality can vary, so companies are looking for platforms that offer good integration, security, and maintainability for bigger projects. Does that give you a sense of where things stand?
A little bit. So what do you mean by maintainability with bigger products? Because I've noticed that, like when I have an idea for an app that's not really too crazy out there, complicated or anything, and I describe it pretty much to the letter exactly how I want it to be. What are some tips that you could give to people that are non-coders or don't know fluently any Python or C++ or any programming languages themselves that would help out when vibe coding?
It's all about being clear and iterative. When you're describing your app, break down exactly what you want into small chunks, like one feature at a time, and only move on once that part works. Try to describe the user experience in detail, what they should see, where they can click. That helps the AI generate more accurate code. Also, don't be afraid to copy and paste error messages directly in if something breaks. That's a key part of refining the code. Does that sound like a helpful approach?
Yeah, because I think that in fact that might actually help me out, because I think that, well, in fact I know that I was probably trying to put a little bit too much in at one time. And it did actually a really good job for the first part of it, but I went I was pretty descriptive of how I wanted it to work with its functionality and everything. And then when I actually tried to click the buttons, that they were clickable, but it's just nothing happened, or it would crash after like 2 seconds. And then I did actually just that. I posted, copied and pasted the error messages that it would generate directly back into the prompt window. Um, and I'm just wondering, what are what are some of the coolest things that people have made so far with it? Has there What are some apps that maybe I could find right now that people have made from vibe coding?
It's really cool what people are building. I've seen examples like specialized calculators, summaries of news articles, and even some more personal projects, like an app to practice Japanese phrases for a trip. There's also one that can identify dog breeds from a picture. Since you're already sharing error messages, that's perfect for working through those crashes. What kind of app are you trying to build?
So I'm building something um called the Muse Bridge, and it's basically an app, as you know, as you well know, Gemini, better than anyone, that basically allows users to put it in a summary, because I'm going to post this on YouTube today. Hopefully I'll have a working demo to show you guys tomorrow, but it's going to allow people to have a better access to their memory in Gemini. And doing some research on that, I haven't found too many apps like that have been able to do that yet, at least in the way that I want to do it exactly. So we'll see how it goes. I have to admit, the road's been pretty bumpy so far, although the stuff that it did generate was really high quality. And I think that one thing that you pointed out to me, which I think which is really important, to code to vibe code one part at a time. Because if you try to give it 2 or 3, 4 functionalities, maybe it's not going to be the best thing. And I think that's the best advice that I've gotten for that. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Well, that's all the time that we have, guys. It was great, being able to do this morning newscast for you all, and spin it off at the end there with a little bit of a personal touch. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a great St. Patty's Day. Is there any last comments you'd like to add, Gemini?
It's been great chatting about all this. Good luck with your MuseBridge app and getting that demo ready. It sounds like a really helpful idea for personal data access. Breaking down the features into smaller steps is definitely the way to go. Have a great rest of your Sunday, enjoy St. Patrick's Day, and let me know if anything else comes up.
Thank you, Gemini, and you guys have a great rest of your Sunday.